I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing on the nightstand. It was 12:41 a.m. I remember the exact time because I checked twice, thinking maybe I was dreaming. Angela was snoring next to me, curled up on her side like always after Zumba nights. Hair still damp, her gym bag still by the door. I reached for the phone, squinting at the screen. Carrie, Angela's best friend since college. I hadn't heard from her in months. I almost didn't answer, but something in my gut told me to pick up. Hello. Carrie's voice was shaky. Marcus, I can't keep it in anymore. I'm sorry, I know it's late. I sat up, heart pounding. What's going on? She took a breath, like she was steadying herself. Angela's cheating on you. Has been. With some guy from her office named Tyler. For a second, I didn't say anything, just stared at the wall. The room suddenly felt colder. I looked down at Angela, still asleep, mouth slightly open, breathing soft. Carrie, what are you talking about? I saw them tonight, she said quickly. They were at Sullivan's. I went there with Mike after his shift. I saw her. She didn't see me. She was hanging on his arm, laughing, introduced him to people as her boyfriend. I pressed the phone tighter against my ear. Are you sure? I wish I wasn't, she whispered. This isn't the first time either. They've been sneaking around for months. I didn't know how to tell you, but tonight, it was in public. She doesn't even care anymore. Quick note. Before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. I looked at Angela again. Same woman who told me she had a late client dinner. Same woman who kissed my cheek on the way out the door like it was just another Tuesday. My chest burned. How long? I asked. Carrie hesitated. Since at least March. Maybe earlier. That was 5 months ago. I ran through the timeline. The late nights. The extra makeup. The sudden case overloads. I believed it all. Hell, I'd made excuses for her. I heard Carrie sniffle. I'm sorry, Marcus. I know she's my best friend. But this is wrong. You don't deserve it. I didn't respond. Couldn't. I stared at Angela's hand resting on the comforter. Her wedding ring caught the light from the street lamp outside. My mind felt like it split in two, one half stunned, the other already connecting all the dots I'd ignored. Carrie's voice dropped. I had to tell you. Yeah, I finally said. Thanks. I hung up and sat in the dark. For 20 minutes, I just watched her sleep. Same woman I built a life with. 3 kids. 14 years. And all of it trashed behind my back for some clown named Tyler. Angela turned in her sleep, sighing. I got out of bed. Didn't say a word. Didn't even breathe too loud. I just walked to the bathroom, shut the door, and stared at myself in the mirror. This was real. She did this. And I was going to find out everything. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm. Angela was still asleep, curled into her pillow like nothing was wrong. I stayed still until I heard her phone buzz on the nightstand. A calendar alert, nothing exciting. Then she groaned, sat up, and muttered something about needing a shower before court. I watched her grab her robe and shuffle off. The second I heard the bathroom door click shut and water running, I reached for her phone. No passcode. She'd never bothered setting one. Trust, I guess. I opened her messages. Tyler. Top of the list. I scrolled, jaw tightening. Can't stop thinking about last night. You wore me out. Next Tuesday, same room? I'll book it. You really gonna tell him it's a late case again? LMAO, Marcus canceled poker night again. Dude's pathetic. I felt something twist in my stomach. I kept scrolling. Photos. Her in lingerie I'd never seen before. Him shirtless in a hotel mirror, her hand on his chest. Reservations for the Holiday Inn by the airport. Uber receipts. Spa packages booked under a fake name. Then one text stopped me cold. He said he'd stay home with the kids Friday night. Jackpot. That was the night I stayed behind because Dylan had a fever. I canceled plans, ordered takeout, made popcorn. She'd come home at midnight smelling like peppermint body wash and cheap hotel shampoo. I took screenshots, every message, every photo, forwarded them to myself, then deleted the thread from her sent items just in case. I slipped the phone back before the water stopped and headed downstairs like nothing happened. She came down 20 minutes later, hair wet, dressed sharp like usual. She kissed my cheek, poured coffee, acted like we weren't living in two different worlds. Morning. Court's jammed today. I'll probably be home late. I stirred my coffee. Yeah? Late again. She didn't blink. Probably. Big motion hearing. Jordan was pouring cereal. Dylan was chasing the dog around the kitchen. Kayla sat at the counter with her tablet. Everything looked normal. Felt fake. She leaned over to help Dylan with his shoes, smiling like the perfect mom. Marcus, can you help Kayla with her volcano project tonight? She needs to get the eruption part working. Sure, I said, swallowing hard. I'll help her make it explode. Quick note, before we go on, tell us which city or country you're watching from. Angela didn't catch the edge in my voice. She just kissed the top of Dylan's head and grabbed her keys. I'll text if I'm running late. I looked at her, really looked. Of course you will. She smiled like she had no idea. Walked out the door in heels I'd never seen before. I cleaned up breakfast while the kids finished getting ready. Kayla was bubbling about her volcano, telling me she wanted the lava to be bright red, not orange. Red's more real, Daddy. Red it is, I said, trying to hold my voice steady. After I dropped them off at school, I sat in the driveway with the engine running, hands still on the gearshift. My phone buzzed, calendar alert. Dealership budget review at 10 a.m. Screw that. I wasn't going in. Not today. I opened my photo gallery and started organizing everything. Every receipt, every message, every photo she thought she could hide. I made a locked album, labeled it proof. Felt disgusting, like I was spying on my own life. But this wasn't paranoia anymore. It was real. She'd built an entire second life behind my back and used me as the babysitter while she played house with some office punk. I texted the dealership and told them I was taking a personal day. Then I pulled out a notepad and wrote down everything I needed to do next. Because this thing, it was about to blow sky high. I left the notepad on the counter, grabbed my keys, and followed her. She was already a few blocks ahead by the time I caught her black Acura merging onto I-29. She didn't notice me. I hung 2 cars back, stayed in the right lane, kept my head low. She usually headed downtown toward her law office. But this time she veered west, past the exit for the courthouse. My stomach tightened. 10 more minutes and she pulled into the parking lot of the Holiday Inn by the airport. Not even a good one of those older ones with the cracked stucco and the flickering sign. I slowed and rolled past the lot. Tyler's Camaro was already there. Red, flashy, and parked crooked like he thought the world owed him something. I circled around and parked across the street behind a row of rental trucks. Watched her get out. Tight skirt, low blouse. She looked around, then headed inside fast, like she didn't want to be seen. A minute later, he came out to meet her in the lobby. They didn't just hug. He grabbed her waist and kissed her like they were teenagers sneaking around. I stayed in the car, engine off, fists clenched on my knees. She pulled out her phone. A second later, mine buzzed. Court ran long. Might be tied up all afternoon. Love you. I didn't even blink. Just stared through the windshield while she laughed at something he said. They walked to the elevator hand in hand. He squeezed her ass as the doors closed. 2 hours. I sat there the whole time. Didn't touch my phone. Didn't turn on the radio. Just sat there staring at that goddamn Camaro and the ugly green exit sign next to it. Quick note, before we keep going, tell us which city or country you're watching from. Around 2:15, the elevator dinged again. Angela walked out first. Hair a little messy, blouse untucked, holding her heels in one hand. Tyler followed, grinning like he just won something. He smacked her lightly on the butt and said something that made her laugh. She kissed him again outside. Quick, but not quick enough. Then she headed to her car, flipped down the visor mirror, and started fixing her makeup, like she was just getting ready for work. My phone buzzed again. Finally out. Gonna try and make it home early if I can. You good with the volcano? Yeah, I was good. Good enough to burn everything down if I had to. I waited until they both pulled out of the lot before I started my engine. Drove the long way back. Didn't go straight home. I needed to breathe. I needed to think without slamming my fists through a wall. When I walked through the front door, Kayla was already at the kitchen table with the volcano kit spread out. Baking soda, food coloring, plastic tubing. Whole thing looked like a crime scene waiting to happen. "Daddy, can we do it now? It's due Monday." "Yeah, kiddo," I said. "Let's make it erupt." Angela walked in around 6. Hair done. Fresh lipstick. Even changed clothes. She dropped her bag and groaned like she just came from war. God, today was brutal. Judge Simmons was in rare form. I didn't say a word. Just watched her lie straight to my face. Then crouched down to hug Dylan like she hadn't just spent the afternoon screwing some guy in a hotel off the freeway. She came over and kissed my cheek. "Smells like vinegar in here," she said. "Yeah," I said, handing Kayla the red food dye. "We're building a volcano." Angela smiled like it was cute. "Wish I had time to help, but I've got a ton of emails to catch up on. Maybe after dinner." "Sure," I said. She walked out of the room, already tapping on her phone. I sat there with my daughter, holding the bottle while she poured the baking soda in. The volcano foamed up, hissed, and spilled all over the counter. "Whoa!" Kayla giggled. "It exploded." I wiped the mess with a towel and looked at the volcano. It wasn't the only thing about to blow. After I cleaned up the volcano mess, I told Kayla I'd be right back and slipped into the home office. The door didn't lock, but nobody ever went in there but me and Angela, and only when she needed the printer. I started with her file drawer. Nothing labeled suspiciously, just the usual tax stuff, utility bills, school forms. Then, tucked behind a stack of old insurance folders, I found it. A manila envelope. No label. I opened it. Bank statements. Not from our main account, the one we used for bills and groceries, but a totally different bank. One I didn't even recognize. My last name wasn't on it. The balance history made my chest tighten. Over $40,000 spent in the last year. Lingerie, dinners, hotel charges every couple of weeks, spa weekends in St. Louis, train tickets to Chicago, a concert in Denver. Every charge lined up with a business trip or weekend girls' retreat she'd mentioned. But here's the part that made my hands shake. The transfers. She'd moved the money straight from our joint savings account, the same one we'd built up slowly for the kids' college fund. I skipped vacations, delayed buying a new car, took on extra shifts every tax season to make sure that funds stayed padded. She bled it dry to impress a guy who drove a Camaro. Quick note: while you're listening, drop a comment with what city or country you're tuning in from. I pulled out my phone and snapped photos of every page, front and back. Zoomed in on anything that had her name or the transaction ID. Then I slid everything back exactly how I found it and shut the drawer. My hands were still shaking when I walked out. Angela was in the kitchen, flipping chicken cutlets on the stove. Garlic, lemon, rosemary, the one dish she made that I actually craved. Used to joke it was the reason I married her. "You're making lemon chicken?" I asked, trying to keep my voice flat. She turned and smiled. "Felt like doing something nice. You've been helping the kids a lot lately. Figured you deserved a treat." I nodded, sat at the counter. She moved around like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't stolen from her own kids to pay for hotels and champagne with her office boy toy. Dylan came in with a workbook under his arm. "Mom, can you help me with this?" She wiped her hands and kissed his forehead. "Of course, baby. Just give me 10 minutes. After dinner, I did the dishes while she and Dylan worked on spelling words in the living room. Her laugh carried into the kitchen like it was any normal Wednesday. But while the water ran and plates clinked, I was on my phone. Google, Best Divorce Attorney Kansas City. Click, scroll, click, free consultation, aggressive representation, bookmark. Next search, Joint Custody Laws Missouri. I read every line like my life depended on it. Because now I knew this wasn't just about lies or sex or ego. She stole from our kids. She gutted their future to fund a fantasy. That was my line. When Dylan ran in to show me his gold star sticker, I smiled and gave him a high five. Angela followed behind him, sipping a glass of wine like she hadn't just gutted our marriage and wiped her mouth clean. I excused myself and went back to the office, closed the door, sat in front of the laptop and started filling out the consultation form. Name, age, years married, number of children, reason for inquiry, infidelity and financial misconduct. That was the night the denial died, and I started planning the war. I hit submit on the consultation form and shut the laptop. 2 days later, I was sitting on a splintered metal bench at the middle school soccer field, watching Kayla's team do passing drills. Late afternoon sun, wind picking up, little kids chasing a ball like it meant something. Jordan dropped down next to me without saying a word. I didn't even hear him walk over. "Hey," I said. He didn't respond right away. Just watched the field, arms crossed tight, jaw clenched like mine used to be when I was his age and had to pretend everything was fine at home. "Mom's cheating, right?" he finally asked. I turned toward him. "What?" "I saw her," he said, still watching the field. "Few weeks ago. Me and Zach were biking by the airport. Saw her coming out of that Holiday Inn with some guy. Red Camaro. They kissed. She didn't see me. I sat back, tried to breathe, but it hit like a punch. I thought I was protecting them. Turns out I was just giving them front row seats." "You sure it was her?" He looked at me then. "You think I don't know my own mom?" I didn't answer. He shook his head. "Why aren't you doing anything?" Quick note. While you're listening, let us know what city or country you're tuning in from. The way he said it, quiet but loaded, I felt it in my gut. "I'm working on it," I said. "Yeah? 'Cause it feels like you're just letting it happen." He wasn't yelling. That made it worse. It was that cold, quiet disappointment. I'd seen that face on him before, when his basketball team blew a playoff lead and no one stepped up. That's what this was. "Your brother and sister know something's up," he said. "They hear the weird phone calls. Mom disappearing. You looking like you haven't slept in a year." He rubbed his hands together, voice low. "Dylan asked me last night if you and Mom are getting a divorce. He's 8, Dad. 8. My chest tightened. "And I said no," Jordan went on, "because I didn't know what else to say. But if he's asking, then whatever's going on, he sees it. Kayla too. She's quieter lately. She doesn't ask Mom for anything anymore." He looked over at me, eyes red. "We just want one of you to tell the truth." I stared at the field. Kayla took a shot and missed, but laughed it off and kept playing. "I didn't want to drag you guys into this," I said. "I thought keeping the peace was better than blowing everything up." Jordan snorted. "There's no peace, Dad. We just all stopped talking." That landed hard. I rubbed my eyes. "I'm filing," I said finally. "I've got proof. A lawyer. I'm doing it right." He nodded once. "Good." I glanced at him. "You gonna be okay?" "I'll be fine," he said. "Just don't wait too long, all right?" We sat there for a while, not saying much, just watching Kayla's team lose the ball again and again, chasing after it like they still thought they had a shot. Jordan stood up. "I'll walk home with Kayla. You've got stuff to do." He didn't say it harshly, just matter of fact. I watched him walk off down the bleachers, hands in his hoodie pocket, already stepping up in ways I hadn't. The message was clear. If I didn't show them how to handle betrayal, they'd figure it out on their own. And that would be worse than any divorce. I sat in the waiting room of the law office with my hands clenched in my lap, staring at the carpet, listening to the low hum of the fluorescent lights. It smelled like coffee and dust, with just a hint of the legal world's bitter, expensive air. Carrie had recommended her, Michelle Harris. Tough, no nonsense. Everything I needed. When she called me back, I followed her down a narrow hallway into her office. It was small but clean, with a few law books on the shelf and a big desk covered with case files. She didn't smile, didn't shake my hand, just pointed to the chair in front of her desk. "You've got the documents?" she asked. I nodded, sliding the manila folder I'd been carrying across the desk to her. It felt like I was handing her the last pieces of my marriage. She flipped through the folder quickly. Photos of Angela and Tyler, bank statements, texts, hotel reservations. Everything lined up in black and white. Pretty airtight, she said, looking up at me for the first time. We've got infidelity, financial misconduct, and emotional neglect. That's a strong case. I felt the weight of it, but there was no relief. Just a sinking feeling like the floor was caving beneath me. You're gonna fight for custody? She asked, her voice soft but sharp at the edges. I took a breath. I have to. She nodded, folding the paperwork neatly. I can see that. You've got the proof. I'll file for divorce citing all of this. We'll go for primary custody of the kids. Financial restitution's a given, especially with what she's been doing with the savings. That's a clear violation of her duties as a parent. I leaned forward, feeling the heat in my chest rise. What about her time with them? Will she get weekends or something? Michelle leaned back in her chair, hands folded across her stomach. We'll ask for supervised visits. Based on the financial misconduct alone, we're in a strong position to argue that she's unfit to be unsupervised. You're their primary caretaker right now, and with the emotional neglect, that only strengthens your case. It felt like I was holding my breath as she spoke, every word landing harder than the last. I tried to keep my face blank, but inside, I was already imagining the fight ahead. Angela in a courtroom, trying to make excuses while I held the truth in my hands. You sure you're ready for this? She asked after a moment, her eyes locked on mine. I didn't hesitate. I've been ready. Michelle smiled, just a little. Then let's do it. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table, sorting through the paperwork she'd given me. The papers were thick with the weight of what I was about to do. Everything from financial declarations to custody schedules, all of it waiting for me to sign, to make it real. Angela was already gone by the time I woke up. Another late night at work, I assumed. I didn't care. I needed space to think, to figure out the next steps without her pretending everything was fine. Kayla came downstairs first, looking sleepy but still smiling. Good morning, Dad. Morning, kiddo, I said, ruffling her hair. Ready for school? She nodded. I'm supposed to do a report on volcanoes today. Don't forget the baking soda, I said, watching her shuffle toward the door. Jordan came in a few minutes later, avoiding my eyes like he always did when he thought I might be upset. I wanted to tell him everything was going to be okay, that I had a plan, but I didn't want to lie anymore. Dad, he said, his voice rough, you're really doing this, right? The divorce. I looked at him, saw the same question in his eyes from the other night. He wasn't looking for reassurance. He was looking for someone who would finally make the call. Someone who would stand up. Yeah, kid, I'm doing it. He nodded, and I could see the relief on his face. I didn't have to say anything else. He knew I wasn't backing down. I signed the papers later that night, with the kids in bed, my hand steady on the pen as I crossed out the last line of our marriage. I didn't feel anything at first, just numb. But then I looked at the photos of my kids on the fridge, their grinning faces, their crooked teeth, their messy hair. And for the first time in months, I felt like I was doing the right thing. For them. I sat at Jason's kitchen table, papers scattered in front of me. My fingers moved through the divorce documents, organizing them again and again, making sure I wasn't missing anything. The lawyer's advice ran through my mind like a broken record. File for divorce. Focus on custody. Keep the kids away from her until the court order is in place. The plan was set, but every time I looked at the papers, I felt that sick feeling in my stomach again. Jason was in the living room watching the game. I was supposed to be there, but I couldn't stop thinking about what was coming. Every time I thought I was ready, the weight of it hit harder. Then my phone buzzed on the table. It was a call from the school. My heart dropped before I even answered. Mr. Dillon? The voice on the other end was rushed, tight. This is Ms. Carson from Longview Elementary. I'm calling about your son, Dylan. He collapsed during recess. We've called an ambulance. He's being transported to St. Luke's. My mind went blank. Is he okay? I tried to keep my voice steady, but it cracked. We don't know yet, but it looks like he might need surgery. I didn't even say goodbye. I hung up and grabbed my jacket. I drove like a maniac, The streets blurred, but my thoughts were clear. Dylan's not okay. He's not okay. The hospital was only 10 minutes away, but it felt like an eternity. When I got to the ER, a nurse met me at the door and led me back. Dylan was unconscious on the bed, hooked up to N4, pale and still. They said his appendix had burst. He needed surgery right away. I kept it together as best as I could while they prepped him, but inside, I was falling apart. I tried calling Angela 5 times. No answer. Not one. The waiting room was quiet, too quiet, and my phone felt like it was burning in my pocket. Finally, a doctor came in, the one who'd be doing the surgery. He explained what would happen next, and I signed the forms without looking at them. My hand was shaking, but I didn't care. I was the one here. I was the one who had to make the calls. I sat in the waiting area for the longest 2 hours of my life. Nurses came and went, but the pain in my chest didn't ease. It was just me, waiting, hoping, praying. I kept staring at the clock, willing the hands to move faster. Jordan showed up a little after 6. His eyes were red, like he'd been crying, but he didn't say anything, just sat down next to me, his usual quiet self. He didn't need to speak. I could see the worry in his face. "How's he doing?" Jordan asked quietly, rubbing his palms on his jeans. "They're in surgery. It's all we can do right now," I said, my voice hoarse. I don't know what's going on with your mom." He looked at me, a mix of anger and sadness in his eyes. "She didn't pick up, huh?" I shook my head. "Not a single time." Jordan was quiet for a minute. Then he said, "I told you, Dad. I told you she wouldn't be there when you needed her." I didn't have an answer. How could I? Around 10 that night, the surgery was over. The doctor came out and said Dylan was doing okay. They'd gotten everything out and he was stable. I just had to sit there, exhausted, for another hour while they got him settled in recovery. At midnight, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Angela. "I'm sorry. I was at a client dinner and my phone died. I'll be home soon." I read it 3 times. Her phone died? Bullshit. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. She came in at 1:30 a.m., looking disheveled, her hair falling out of the ponytail, her eyes a little glassy. She smelled like alcohol. Red wine, maybe? Something else too. "Marcus," she said, sounding way too casual for someone who hadn't been there when her son was in surgery. "I'm sorry. I know this is crazy. I didn't mean to be late. It's been a long night." I didn't even look at her. I was too busy staring at Dylan's empty bed, the one he should have been lying in. "He's fine," I said. "The surgery went well. He's stable." She didn't respond, just dropped her purse on the counter and walked over to me like nothing was wrong. She leaned down to kiss me, but I stepped back. "I'm done, Angela." She froze, eyes wide. "What?" "I filed for divorce," I said, my voice low but steady. "You'll be served tomorrow." Her face twisted, the mask of guilt creeping in. "You can't be serious." "Marcus, please." I cut her off. "I am serious. I'm done waiting for you to decide when you want to be here. I'm done covering for you. You don't get to ignore your son when he needs you and then walk in here like everything's fine. I'm not playing this game anymore." She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. She just stared at me, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel sorry for her. The papers were served 2 days later. Carrie texted me right before it happened, her message blunt. "She's at brunch with her mom. She doesn't know yet." I didn't care. I'd already made the decision. She needed to face the consequences of what she'd done. I drove to the dealership and parked in the lot. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe, even though everything was still a mess. I had nothing left to lose. By the time I'd gotten back home, the phone started blowing up. First, a call from Angela. I didn't pick up. Then another, and another. Each time I let it ring. She left a voicemail. "Marcus, please call me. We need to talk. I can't believe this is happening." I deleted it without listening to the whole thing. She texted right after. "We can work through this. We can fix it. I'll do anything. Please." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Carrie called me about 15 minutes later. I picked up the phone, figuring I'd give her the details of what had just gone down. "Marcus," she said, her voice trembling. "You didn't. You really did it. You filed." I took a deep breath. "Yeah, I did. It's done." She was silent for a beat, then cursed under her breath. "I just saw her at brunch. She was with her mom. I thought she was going to have a stroke when the papers came. You should have seen her face. She couldn't even hold it together." I could picture it. Angela, always the one in control, falling apart in front of everyone. I didn't feel bad about it. Not anymore. "Carrie, I need to tell you something. You need to know exactly what's been going on. The money she spent, the lies, the hotel stays, the dinners, everything she's done has been out of our joint savings. I was saving that for the kids, the college fund. All of it is gone." Carrie was quiet for a second. "I had no idea. I'm so sorry, Marcus. I feel like I should have said something sooner." "It's not your fault," I said. "I had to find out on my own. But I'm done pretending this isn't happening. I'm done giving her a chance to explain. The kids need to know the truth. I'm not going to keep covering for her." Carrie sighed, and I could hear the guilt in her voice. "I know. But Marcus, do you really think you're ready for all of this?" I paused. "I have to be." The next morning, I met with my lawyer again. She slid a new set of papers across the table. Angela's lawyer had proposed a joint custody arrangement, a 50-50th split. The same bullshit we'd agreed on years ago when the kids were younger, when everything was just complicated and hard. I stared at the proposal for a second, feeling my blood boil. "I'm not agreeing to this," I said, shaking my head. "She doesn't deserve 50-50. She's been emotionally neglecting the kids for months. And that doesn't even count the financial stuff." Michelle, my lawyer, looked at me like she was waiting for me to say exactly what I needed to hear. "You're right. And with all the evidence you've gathered, we have a good shot at primary custody. We can fight for full restitution as well. Get back the money she took from the kids' savings." I slammed my fist on the table. "I'm not letting her get away with this. I'm not splitting anything. She doesn't get a second chance. She had one. She blew it." Michelle nodded, pushing the new paperwork toward me. "We'll go for full custody then. Full financial restitution. I want her served with everything," I said. "I'm not giving her an inch." 2 days later, Angela came to the house. I wasn't expecting her, but there she was, standing at the door, looking like she hadn't slept in days. "I need to talk to you, Marcus," she said, her voice breaking. I opened the door and stepped aside, keeping my distance. "Talk." She walked in like she was going to fix everything with words. She'd always been good with words. "I'm sorry," she said, sitting down on the couch. "I've been horrible. I know I've messed up. But I need you to understand. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was lonely. I thought you didn't see me anymore." I crossed my arms. "It wasn't about being lonely, Angela. It was about you lying to me, taking everything I've worked for, and shoving it down my throat. You don't get to make excuses now. You made your choice." Her face crumpled. "Please, Marcus, I know I messed up. Please just let me try. I'll do whatever it takes. Just give me another chance." I stood there for a second, watching her fall apart in front of me. But I felt nothing. No sympathy. No guilt. Just empty. "No," I said, my voice firm. "You don't get to try anymore. I'm done." I turned and walked out of the room. When I got to the kitchen, I took a deep breath, looked out the window, and reminded myself. This was for the kids. 6 months later, I was sitting behind the desk of my own dealership. The walls were freshly painted. The floor still smelled like new wood. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I'd left the corporate gig, cut ties with the old job, and built something from scratch. Nothing extravagant, just enough to pay the bills and keep the kids safe. The house was smaller now too, just a couple miles from their schools. It didn't matter. It was home. It had everything I needed. Space for us, no pretenses, no fake smiles. The kids each had their rooms, and the kitchen was where we spent most nights, eating simple meals and talking about the day. Angela? She got the visitation she deserved. Supervised. The court ordered her to pay restitution for the money she'd stolen from the kids' savings. 40 grand. She didn't have it, of course, but the court made sure she'd be paying for the next few years. She hated that. The look on her face when the judge signed those papers, her hands were shaking. She hadn't expected to lose it all. But she had. I had full custody. I was the one who made the decisions now, not her. And I was fine with it. I was in the office, sorting through inventory, when Carrie showed up, unannounced like she always did. She didn't knock, just walked in with a cup of coffee in one hand, her usual grin on her face. "Hey, stranger," she said, kicking the door shut behind her. "I figured I'd stop by and see how you're holding up. Kids doing okay?" "Yeah," I said, leaning back in my chair. "They're good. Happy. Things are calm now. No more walking on eggshells." She gave a small nod and sat across from me. Her eyes were serious now, a little cautious. "I need to tell you something." I raised an eyebrow. "What's up?" She hesitated. "I found out something about Angela. Something you probably should know." I stared at her for a second. "What is it?" Carrie leaned forward, the coffee cup trembling slightly in her hand. Tyler wasn't the first guy she was seeing. Not by a long shot. I sat up, my stomach turning. "What do you mean?" She sighed, rubbing her forehead. "It started 2 years ago. I didn't know at first, but after everything came out with Tyler, I started putting things together. She'd been sneaking around before him. Different guy. It wasn't just work stress. It wasn't just loneliness. She'd been having affairs on and off for at least 2 years. Tyler was just the one she got caught with. I wasn't surprised, not really. But hearing it out loud made the anger flare up again. It wasn't just betrayal, it was a pattern. A deliberate, planned, ongoing betrayal. "Was it someone I know?" I asked, my voice tight. Carrie shook her head. "Not really. But it's the same pattern, Marcus. She got bored, and she didn't care who she hurt to feel alive again. It wasn't about love. It was about control. About getting what she wanted, when she wanted it." I leaned back in my chair, processing. Part of me wanted to feel like a fool, but the other part of me just felt vindicated. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining things. I had done the right thing. "So what now?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Carrie sipped her coffee. "Now? You keep doing what you're doing. You've got your kids. You've got your life back. You got out. That's all you needed to do." A few days later, I picked up the kids from school. Kayla was buzzing about some art project, her voice loud and full of excitement. Dylan was being Dylan, quiet, looking out the window, but you could see the confidence growing in him. Jordan was in the back seat, headphones on, lost in whatever music he was listening to. We got home, and the place felt like a home again. No tension, no pretending, just us. And I knew I'd made the right choice. I didn't need to think about Angela anymore. I didn't need to care what she was doing or where she was. She wasn't part of our life now. She didn't have the right to be. When I tucked the kids in later that night, I stood at the doorway and watched them for a second. This was what family was supposed to feel like. This was home. And for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. A week later, Jordan showed me the Instagram post. It was a picture of Angela and Tyler at a small beach ceremony. The ocean in the background, Tyler grinning like he'd won a prize. Angela was smiling too, her arm around his waist, a simple white dress flowing in the wind. The caption read, "New beginnings." I stared at it for a minute. No emotion, no anger, no sadness, just relief. Jordan was watching me, waiting for a reaction. He didn't get one. "That's her choice, right?" I said, finally handing him the phone back. "She's free to do whatever she wants now." Jordan didn't answer right away. He just nodded and put the phone in his pocket. "You're not mad?" "No," I said. "I'm not mad. Not anymore." He didn't say anything else. Just went back to his room. He didn't need to. I could see it in his face. He understood. A few months went by without any drama. Angela stopped showing up for visits. The court had set the schedule, but she'd cancel last minute, claim work stuff, or just not call. I didn't force it. I didn't have to. The kids were thriving. No more late nights wondering where she was. No more tiptoeing around her moods. They were better off. We were all better off. Then one evening, just as I was settling down on the couch to read, my phone rang. It was Carrie. "Marcus, you won't believe this," she said, her voice half hushed, like she was still shocked. Angela caught Tyler cheating on her. I didn't feel a thing. Not a hint of sympathy. Just a small, satisfied sigh. "Are you serious?" I asked, leaning back. Carrie went on. "She's been trying to call you. Says she wants to talk. Wants you to hear her side. She's a mess, Marcus. You know her. But she's still asking for you." I thought about it for a second. The old part of me, the one who tried to fix everything, wanted to tell her that I was sorry, that I hoped she'd figure it out. But I didn't. That version of me was gone. "Tell her I'm done," I said flatly. "Some bridges can't be rebuilt." She was quiet for a moment. "You sure?" "Yeah, I'm sure." Later that night, I went into the kids' room. Dylan was already asleep, his small body tangled in the sheets. I kissed his forehead and pulled the blanket up around him, watching him breathe in and out, so peaceful. Then I went to Kayla's room. She was at the desk, working on her scholarship applications, determined as ever. She looked up when I walked in. "Dad, can you help me with this question? It's about my volunteer work." I sat down next to her, running my fingers through her hair as she read the prompt aloud. "What does family mean to you?" I smiled a little. "Family means we always have each other's backs, no matter what, even when things aren't perfect." She grinned, writing it down. "That's exactly what I was going to say." I kissed the top of her head. "I know, kiddo." As I walked out of her room and turned off the lights, I stood there for a second. This was it. This was what family felt like. And I knew for sure now, I had everything I needed.